If you've ever felt stuck, unmotivated, or like life is moving faster than you are, this video will change how you approach every single day. In the next few minutes, you'll discover practical ways to force yourself to be disciplined, even when motivation is gone or distractions are all around you. You'll learn how to build habits that stick, structure your days for consistency, remove distractions before they take over, and push past fear or hesitation to take action no matter how you feel. By the end of this video, you'll have actionable steps to transform your routines, hold yourself accountable, and reward effort in a way that keeps you progressing every day. These are strategies used by people who achieve more without relying on luck or willpower. Subscribe to Audiobook Shift for more content that empowers you to take control of your life and become the disciplined, unstoppable version of yourself. Number 1. Build habits, not rely motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It's a spark that burns bright for a moment and then fades when life gets uncomfortable. You might wake up one morning ready to take on the world, convinced that today will be different. You start strong, but a few days later, you're tired, unmotivated, and back to the same habits that held you back. The truth is simple: motivation doesn't last, but habits do. If you want to be truly disciplined, you must build systems that carry you forward even when you don't feel like moving. Relying on motivation is like trying to sail with the wind. When it's there, everything feels easy and smooth, but when the wind stops, you're stuck. Habits are the engine that moves the ship even when the wind dies down. They keep you going through boredom, frustration, and fatigue. Discipline isn't about waiting for the right feeling. It's about creating a structure that makes the right action automatic. Every great achievement in history, every disciplined individual you admire, wasn't built on endless motivation. It was built on repeated action. People who wake up early to train, who write daily, who eat clean, who study consistently, they don't depend on inspiration. They depend on routine. They've learned to make their actions independent of their emotions. You cannot force yourself to feel motivated every day, but you can force yourself to act. Over time, those actions turn into habits, and those habits shape who you are. When you repeat an action long enough, it becomes part of your identity. You start to see yourself differently. You no longer have to convince yourself to do it. You simply do. The person who runs daily doesn't argue with themselves about whether to put on shoes. It's just what they do. The person who reads every night doesn't question whether to open the book. It's part of who they are. Habits build character silently, without permission until they define you. That's the quiet power of consistency. Building habits starts small. Discipline begins with something simple, repeatable, and specific. If you try to change everything at once, you'll burn out. The mind resists sudden, overwhelming change, but it accepts gradual, steady improvement. Start with one small action you can sustain. If you want to exercise more, commit to 10 minutes daily. If you want to read more, commit to 1 page. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. The small act you repeat becomes the foundation for something greater. Your brain learns through repetition, not intensity. Doing something small every day teaches your mind that this action matters. Over time, it becomes automatic. You don't have to think about brushing your teeth. You just do it. Imagine if you could make productive habits just as automatic. That's what true discipline feels like. Not constant struggle, but calm, consistent action without drama. The hardest part isn't the task itself. It's starting. Once you begin, momentum takes over. Habits thrive in the right environment. If your surroundings constantly tempt you, discipline becomes a daily battle. To make discipline easier, remove friction, make good habits easy, and bad habits hard. If you want to eat healthy, keep nutritious food visible, and remove junk food from reach. If you want to read more, leave a book on your desk or bed. If you want to wake up earlier, put your phone away from your bed so you have to stand up to turn off the alarm. Small environmental shifts change your behavior more than willpower ever could. Discipline is not about punishing yourself. It's about designing your life to support your goals. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. A missed day doesn't mean failure. It means you're human. What matters most is what you do next. Many people break a habit once and give up completely, but discipline means getting back on track immediately. Forgive yourself quickly, then return to the plan. The goal is progress, not flawless execution. Emotion will always fluctuate. Some days you'll feel strong, other days you'll feel drained. If your actions depend on how you feel, you'll never be consistent. Discipline means acting independently of emotion. You show up whether you're tired, bored, or uninspired. It's not about being harsh, it's about being committed. The person who acts regardless of mood becomes unstoppable because their progress no longer depends on unpredictable motivation. You might think you need to feel inspired to start, but most times inspiration follows action, not the other way around. When you begin moving, your brain adapts. You start feeling capable, focused, and engaged. Waiting for the right mood is a trap. Action creates clarity, and clarity strengthens discipline. Even a small step forward reminds your brain that you're in control. Consistency is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your self-trust. When you say you'll do something and follow through, you prove to yourself that your word has value. That trust is the foundation of discipline. Without it, you'll always struggle to stay consistent. Building habits isn't just about actions. It's about becoming the kind of person who does what they say they'll do. There will be resistance. There will be days when every part of you wants to quit. Those are the moments that define your growth. The mind searches for comfort, but discipline lives in discomfort. You train your willpower like a muscle. Each time you act despite resistance, you grow stronger. Eventually, the things that once felt difficult become natural. What used to take effort becomes part of your identity. You no longer have to force yourself. You've become the kind of person who simply does. Track your progress. Seeing your growth visually reinforces your habits. A simple calendar, journal, or app that records your daily actions can be powerful. Each checkmark represents a promise kept. Over time, the streak becomes motivation itself. You'll want to protect your consistency because you've invested effort into it. Tracking keeps you accountable and makes discipline rewarding. Reward yourself for showing up, not just for achieving results. When you associate positive feelings with disciplined actions, your brain begins to crave them. A small celebration, a moment of gratitude, or quiet satisfaction can strengthen your habit loop. The point isn't external reward, it's internal recognition. You're reinforcing the identity of a disciplined person. Habits compound like interest. Each small action may feel insignificant, but over time they build enormous momentum. Missing one workout doesn't ruin you, and one great workout doesn't transform you. The real transformation happens through quiet persistence. The results appear long after most people have quit. That's why habits are powerful. They keep you moving when results aren't visible yet. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll wait forever. Start imperfectly. Act before you're comfortable. Every disciplined person began with hesitation, fear, and doubt. They acted anyway. What separates the disciplined from the undisciplined isn't talent or motivation. It's the decision to take consistent action, no matter how small. In time, your habits will become your freedom. You'll no longer fight daily battles to stay consistent. You'll simply live in alignment with your goals. The effort you once used to force yourself will transform into calm confidence. Discipline will stop feeling like restriction and start feeling like control over your own life. That's the true reward of building habits. You gain mastery over us. Building habits, not relying on motivation, is how you take charge of your future. Motivation fades, discipline remains. Feelings change, commitment endures. Every day you repeat the right action, you strengthen your foundation. You don't have to wait for inspiration or luck. You only have to act, one deliberate step at a time. Over weeks and months, those steps shape a life built on consistency, focus, and purpose. The disciplined person doesn't chase motivation, they create momentum. And once momentum takes over, nothing can stop you. Number 2, create structure for daily consistency. Most people want to be consistent, but their days are built on chaos. They wake up without a clear plan, reacting to whatever happens around them. They rely on impulse and hope that discipline will somehow appear. But discipline doesn't survive in disorder. If your days lack structure, your focus and energy will scatter across endless distractions. Structure is what gives discipline a place to live. It turns your time into something measurable and intentional. Without structure, you drift. With structure, you move forward with direction and control. Daily structure isn't about living a rigid or robotic life. It's about designing a rhythm that supports your goals and reduces wasted effort. It gives your mind clarity, because you no longer need to decide every hour what to do next. Every decision costs mental energy, and without a plan, you burn that energy on small, meaningless choices. A structured day removes the noise. It allows you to focus your attention where it truly matters. The strongest people don't rely on random bursts of willpower. They rely on systems that keep them steady. Creating structure starts with understanding your priorities. Most people fill their days with low-value activities because they haven't defined what's truly important. Discipline begins by identifying what deserves your time. Ask yourself, what tasks move your life forward, and what tasks simply fill the day? When you're clear about that, you can begin to design your day around your highest priorities. The goal is not to do more, but to do what matters with intention. A well-structured day begins before the day even starts. The night before, plan what tomorrow will look like. Write down the key actions you must complete. This doesn't have to be complicated. 3 to 5 focused tasks are enough. When you wake up, you'll already know where to direct your energy. You won't waste time wondering what to do next. That simple step alone eliminates hours of hesitation and distraction. A person who plans ahead always moves faster than someone who starts unprepared. Consistency grows when your days follow a pattern. Your brain can predict. Waking up and sleeping at the same time every day builds stability. Eating, working, resting, and exercising at regular times trains your body and mind to operate in sync. You create a steady rhythm that keeps your energy balanced. Chaos weakens discipline because your brain is always adapting to uncertainty. Structure strengthens it because your brain learns when to perform and when to rest. Your mornings set the tone for everything that follows. A morning routine doesn't have to be long or complicated. It just needs to be intentional. Start with something that grounds you and gives direction to your day. It might be writing down your goals, stretching, journaling, or a few minutes of silence before you touch your phone. The point is to begin with purpose instead of reaction. When your morning starts with control, your day follows the same pattern. Structure also protects your attention. Every time you switch tasks or check your phone, you lose momentum. One notification can pull you off track for half an hour. Discipline dies in distraction. To stay consistent, you must create boundaries for your focus. Set specific times to check messages or social media. Design blocks of uninterrupted work time. During those hours, remove everything that competes for your attention. You'll achieve in 2 focused hours what others fail to do in a full day of scattered effort. Break your day into focused blocks of work, followed by short breaks. Your brain performs best when effort and recovery alternate. Too many people grind endlessly and burn out, thinking exhaustion equals discipline. True consistency comes from balance. Work with full focus, rest with full presence, then return refreshed. The mind is a tool. It needs maintenance, not punishment. Structured recovery ensures you can show up tomorrow with the same strength. Some people resist structure because they fear it will limit their freedom. But in reality, structure creates freedom. When your time has purpose, you gain control over it. You finish your tasks early, have space to rest, and avoid the anxiety of unfinished work. Without structure, time slips away, and you end the day frustrated, wondering where the hours went. Freedom is not the absence of structure, it's the reward of it. You don't need to plan every minute of your day, but you must define the important hours. The first and last hours of your day hold the most power. The first sets your direction, the last resets your mind. Protect them from chaos. No aimless scrolling, no reacting to others' demands. Use that time for self-alignment, reflection, or learning. How you start and end your day determines whether your life moves forward or repeats in circles. Creating structure also means understanding your natural rhythms. Not everyone works best at the same time. Some people are sharp early in the morning. Others perform better in the afternoon. Pay attention to when your focus and energy peak, and schedule your hardest tasks then. Don't waste your best mental energy on trivial work. Save it for the actions that matter most. Aligning your schedule with your internal clock increases consistency without extra effort. Structure also depends on simplicity. Complicated systems fail because they collapse under pressure. Keep your routines simple enough that you can maintain them on hard days. When life gets busy, your system should still hold. It's better to follow a simple, repeatable plan every day than to chase an ideal routine that collapses after a week. The structure you can sustain is the structure that changes you. As you create your daily structure, remember that discipline is not about perfection. It's about alignment. There will be days when plans fall apart. Unexpected events will happen. That's normal. Structure isn't meant to trap you. It's meant to guide you back when you drift. Even when life throws you off course, having a framework helps you return quickly instead of starting over. Without structure, one bad day can turn into a lost week. With structure, one bad day is just a momentary detour. To build consistency, anchor your habits to something that already exists. Link a new action to an established one. For example, after you drink your morning coffee, spend 5 minutes reviewing your goals. After brushing your teeth, meditate for 2 minutes. This is how you create flow between actions. It removes the need for decision-making and makes the behavior automatic. The smoother your transitions, the stronger your discipline becomes. Use visual reminders to stay on track. A wall calendar, checklist, or planner gives structure a physical form. Crossing off tasks gives a sense of accomplishment and reinforces progress. You see the evidence of your consistency building up. It's a quiet reminder that each day matters. Structure doesn't live in your mind alone. It lives in visible actions and results. Your environment must also support your structure. The space you live and work in shapes your focus. A cluttered space leads to a cluttered mind. Clean your workspace before starting the day. Keep the tools you need within reach and remove what distracts you. When your surroundings reflect order, your thoughts follow the same pattern. Structure begins internally, but it's strengthened externally. The key to daily consistency is predictability. When your brain knows what to expect, it resists procrastination less. Each repeated pattern strengthens the link between action and result. Soon your days start to flow naturally. You no longer struggle to start because the routine carries you. Consistency stops being something you chase and becomes something you live. You will notice that structure doesn't make your life dull. It makes it peaceful. It gives you clarity, stability, and confidence. When you know what your day demands, you don't waste energy on doubt or hesitation. You wake up with direction, you move with purpose, and you rest without guilt. This is the quiet power of structure. It frees your mind to focus on growth instead of chaos. Over time, daily structure shapes your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone dependable, organized, and disciplined. The person who once struggled to stay consistent becomes someone who naturally follows through. You no longer chase discipline, you embody it. Every structured day reinforces that identity, turning small moments into lifelong strength. The path to discipline isn't about forcing yourself to work harder. It's about creating a system that makes consistency natural. When your days have structure, you no longer fight time, you guide it. You don't rely on bursts of motivation because your schedule carries you forward. Each day becomes another step in a deliberate rhythm of growth. True consistency isn't about perfection. It's about showing up inside a structure that supports your best self every single day. Number 3, remove distractions before they grow. Distractions are not always loud or obvious. They often start small, quiet, and harmless, slowly stealing your attention piece by piece until your focus is gone. Most people don't lose discipline all at once. They lose it in fragments, through moments of interruption that seem too minor to matter. One quick glance at your phone, one unnecessary scroll through social media, one small delay before starting your work, and suddenly the day is gone. Discipline isn't destroyed by massive failures. It's weakened by tiny leaks that go unnoticed. The key to staying disciplined is to remove distractions before they grow into habits that control you. The human mind has limited focus. Every distraction, no matter how small, leaves a mark. Once your concentration is broken, it takes time to rebuild it. Most people underestimate how deeply interruptions damage productivity. A few seconds lost to checking notifications can cost 20 minutes of full focus. You may think you're multitasking, but the brain doesn't work that way. It switches rapidly between tasks, draining energy each time. The result is exhaustion without progress. To master discipline, you must protect your attention as if it were your most valuable resource, because it is. Removing distractions starts with awareness. You can't fight what you don't recognize. Pay attention to where your time goes. Notice what repeatedly pulls you away from what matters. Some distractions are physical, like noise, clutter, or your phone. Others are internal, like wandering thoughts or emotional impulses. The moment you identify what steals your attention, you gain power over it. Discipline begins with understanding your own triggers. Technology is one of the greatest threats to modern discipline. Devices are designed to keep you hooked. Notifications, endless feeds, and subtle algorithms all exist to hold your attention hostage. The first step to regaining control is to make technology serve you, not the other way around. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Move distracting apps off your home screen. Schedule specific times to check messages instead of doing it impulsively. Create digital boundaries that protect your focus. Every alert you silence is one less invitation to lose yourself. Your environment plays a huge role in how easily you get distracted. A messy workspace invites the mind to wander. Every object within sight competes for attention, even when you're not consciously aware of it. Clean and organize your surroundings before you begin important tasks. Keep only what you need within reach. A clear space creates a clear mind. When your environment is orderly, your focus strengthens naturally. But external distractions are only half the problem. Internal distractions, the noise inside your head, are even more dangerous. These are the random thoughts, worries, and emotions that hijack your mind. You sit down to work, and suddenly you're thinking about a conversation from yesterday, or imagining future problems that don't exist yet. The way to manage internal distraction is not to fight every thought, but to notice it and return to the present. Awareness breaks the cycle. When you catch yourself drifting, calmly redirect your attention to what you were doing. Each time you do this, you train your mind to stay steady. One of the most powerful ways to remove distractions before they grow is to establish boundaries around your time. When everything is allowed to enter your schedule, chaos takes over. Protect your time with intention. Say no to activities that don't align with your priorities. Limit social interactions that drain your energy. You can't focus deeply if you're always available to everyone. Boundaries are not selfish. They're necessary for focus. A disciplined life requires learning to guard your attention from constant intrusion. You must also learn to separate focus time from reaction time. Many people spend their day reacting, answering messages, checking updates, responding to others. That reactive rhythm destroys deep work. To prevent that, create blocks of uninterrupted time for your most important work. During that time, no messages, no calls, no distractions. Let people know when you're unavailable. When you protect those hours, you'll produce results that would take others days to achieve. Deep work is not about working longer. It's about working without interruption. Your habits either support or sabotage your discipline. When you constantly switch between stimulating activities like social media, videos, and games, your brain becomes addicted to quick rewards. Then, when you try to focus on something that requires patience, it feels unbearable. The solution is to retrain your brain. Reduce instant gratification. Spend more time doing things that require sustained attention. Reading, writing, creating, or thinking. As your tolerance for focus grows, distractions lose their hold. Distractions grow in silence. They become powerful when left unchecked. That's why prevention is more effective than control. Don't wait to resist temptation. Design your life so you don't encounter it. If social media wastes your time, remove the apps from your phone. If television steals your evenings, unplug it during work hours. If certain people constantly interrupt you, Set firm boundaries. It's easier to remove access to distractions than to fight them repeatedly. Discipline thrives when temptation is distant. Another way to stay free from distractions is to give your mind clear direction. When you don't have a defined goal, distractions fill the empty space. The mind naturally seeks stimulation, and if you don't lead it, it will wander. Every day, define what matters most and commit to completing it. Be specific about your goals. A focused mind has less room for meaningless noise. Clarity is one of the strongest forms of discipline. Many distractions also come from mental clutter, the things you're avoiding. When you leave tasks unfinished, they linger in your thoughts, quietly pulling attention away from the present. This is called open loops. To close them, create a system for capturing tasks and ideas. Write them down. Once they're recorded, your brain can relax, knowing nothing will be forgotten. This simple habit frees mental space for real concentration. People often underestimate how much their energy influences focus. Fatigue, hunger, and poor sleep make distractions irresistible. When your body is tired, your mind seeks stimulation to stay awake, and distractions provide it. The solution is not just mental, it's physical. Take care of your health. Eat clean, sleep deeply, and move your body. A disciplined mind depends on a disciplined body. When your energy is strong, your focus is naturally stable. Another hidden distraction is emotional noise. When you carry frustration, stress, or anger, it leaks into your focus. You can't fully engage in the present when you're mentally replaying past conflicts. Before important work, clear emotional clutter, journaling, deep breathing, or quiet can calm the inner storm. The more centered you are, the less external distractions can touch you. Inner stillness creates outer focus. Over time, you'll notice that distractions lose their strength when you stop feeding them. The first few days of cutting them off might feel uncomfortable. Your mind will crave stimulation, but as days pass, that craving weakens. Focus starts to feel natural again. Silence becomes peaceful, not boring. This is the process of detoxing your attention. Once you experience the power of undistracted work, you'll never want to return to the constant noise of shallow attention. You can measure your discipline by how much uninterrupted focus you can sustain. Every minute spent in true concentration compounds over time, leading to mastery. Every minute lost to distraction moves you further from your goals. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary results often lies in how deeply someone can stay focused without being pulled away. Removing distractions before they grow is how you win that battle. A useful practice is to audit your day weekly. Look at how you spent your time, identify where distractions appeared, and how they affected your work. Then adjust. Discipline is a skill refined through reflection. Each week, you become more aware, more in control. You start noticing distractions earlier, sometimes before they even reach you. That's when you know you're mastering your attention. The modern world will never stop trying to pull you in 100 directions. Notifications, noise, and endless information compete for your mind every second. But you always have the choice to withdraw from the noise and protect your focus. You don't need to control the world. You only need to control what you let in. Every boundary you set is an act of discipline. When you remove distractions before they grow, you build an environment where focus becomes effortless. You no longer waste time fighting battles you could have prevented. Your mind becomes sharper, your work more meaningful, and your progress faster. The more you protect your attention, the stronger your discipline becomes. Over time, distraction loses its power because your focus becomes unshakable. That's the strength of a disciplined mind. It sees clearly, acts deliberately, and moves forward without noise. Number 4. Set consequences for missed actions. Discipline cannot exist without accountability. Most people fail to follow through not because they don't know what to do, but because there are no real consequences for not doing it. When failure costs nothing, it becomes easy to repeat. The mind learns quickly that skipping commitments, breaking promises, or delaying action brings no immediate pain, so it continues to do so. Setting consequences for missed actions is not about punishment. It's about creating responsibility. It's about training your brain to understand that your choices matter, that inaction carries weight, and that every decision has a price. Without consequences, goals lose their urgency. The brain seeks comfort by default, always choosing the easier path. If the only outcome of skipping a workout or avoiding a difficult task is mild guilt, then comfort wins. But when failure leads to something tangible like loss of privilege, a donation to a cause you dislike, or public accountability, your brain begins to take the decision seriously. Consequences turn vague intentions into real commitment. They create pressure, and that pressure builds consistency. Think about it, the reason most people meet external deadlines is because someone else is expecting them to. Missing a work deadline could result in embarrassment or financial loss. But when it comes to personal goals, there's no one watching, no immediate cost. That's why self-imposed consequences are powerful. They create internal accountability. You're no longer negotiating with yourself endlessly. You've drawn a line and crossing it as meaning. Setting consequences begins with honesty. You must admit where you're slipping. Identify the behaviors that repeatedly stop your progress: procrastination, inconsistency, avoidance. Write them down and recognize the cost of continuing that pattern. Then attach a real consequence to each one. For example, if you skip your morning workout, you could commit to donating a fixed amount to an organization you strongly disagree with. If you miss a writing session, you might require yourself to wake up an hour earlier the next day to complete it. The goal is to make the price of failure greater than the comfort of inaction. However, consequences only work when they are meaningful. They must matter enough to trigger change. A consequence that you can easily ignore won't help you grow. It doesn't have to be extreme, but it must be uncomfortable. It could be monetary, social, or time-based, something that creates friction when you fail to follow through. The discomfort should remind you that your actions carry impact. Over time, your brain begins to associate discipline with relief and laziness with discomfort. That shift rewires your habits. Another effective strategy is public accountability. When you tell someone else your goal and the consequence of failure, you add external pressure. Humans naturally want to protect their reputation. We don't like appearing inconsistent or unreliable. By making your commitments visible, you make them real. Share your goals with a friend, mentor, or community that will hold you to your word. If you fail to follow through, face the consequence openly. That vulnerability builds integrity. Discipline grows in the presence of honest accountability. You can also design consequences that are constructive rather than purely punitive. For instance, if you miss a day of study, you could double your effort the next day, or skip an unrelated pleasure activity to make up for lost time. The point is not self-punishment, but balance. Restoring the order you broke. Every missed action leaves a gap, and consequences fill that gap with awareness. They remind you that time and effort are not infinite resources. The absence of consequences often leads to self-deception. You convince yourself that missing one day doesn't matter, that you'll make up for it later. But each exception weakens the structure of discipline. The mind learns that promises can be broken without cost, and soon, quitting becomes a pattern. Setting firm consequences prevents that decay. It draws a boundary your mind respects. You may hesitate, you may resist, but you won't easily cross that line when it has meaning. It's also important to set rewards alongside consequences. Balance creates sustainability. If every missed action has a cost, then every completed action should carry a sense of gain. You don't need grand rewards, just acknowledgement that discipline has value. Maybe you allow yourself a brief rest, a small treat, or a moment of gratitude after completing your tasks. The human brain responds best to systems that recognize both effort and failure. Too much punishment creates burnout. Too much reward breeds complacency. True discipline lies in steady equilibrium. A key part of setting consequences is tracking your behavior. Without evidence, it's easy to rationalize failure. Keep a daily log of your actions and missed tasks. When you fail to complete something, don't ignore it, document it, and apply the agreed consequence immediately. Consistency matters more than intensity. The brain learns through repetition, and every time you follow through with a consequence, you reinforce the seriousness of your commitment. Self-respect is deeply tied to accountability. Every time you do what you said you would, your confidence grows. Every time you break a promise without consequence, your self-respect weakens. Over time, this becomes an identity issue. People who don't hold themselves accountable begin to see themselves as unreliable. Those who follow through, even when it's uncomfortable, develop quiet strength. They trust themselves because they know their word means something. Discipline without accountability is wishful thinking. Discipline with consequences becomes self-mastery. You can design consequences around time, effort, or privilege. A time-based consequence could mean extending your working hours to finish what you avoided. An effort-based one might involve doubling your workload the next day. A privilege-based one could mean giving up something enjoyable like watching your favorite show or relaxing early. The specific form doesn't matter as much as the principle. Your actions shape your outcomes, and every missed opportunity demands correction. For this system to work, you must apply consequences immediately. Delayed accountability loses power. When a child misbehaves, the lesson only works if the consequence follows quickly. Adults are no different. The mind connects cause and effect through proximity. If you delay consequences, the connection fades, and the lesson disappears. Follow through the moment you recognize a missed action. That immediacy teaches your brain to take responsibility in real time. At times you may feel the urge to excuse yourself. You'll find reasons: fatigue, busyness, emotion, to justify skipping the consequence. That's the moment discipline is tested. The purpose of setting consequences isn't to punish you when life gets hard. It's to maintain integrity when it's easiest to abandon it. If you break your own rule once, the next time becomes easier. But if you honor your commitment, even in difficulty, you strengthen your character beyond measure. Consequences also build resilience. When you hold yourself accountable repeatedly, failure stops feeling fatal. You begin to see it as feedback. Each missed action followed by consequence teaches you something about your habits, your triggers, and your limits. You stop fearing mistakes because you know how to recover from them. The process transforms failure into discipline training. You no longer avoid responsibility. You embrace it as part of growth. In the long run, the system of consequences creates freedom. You stop negotiating with yourself over what should be done because the decision is already made. The structure handles it. Your energy no longer goes into arguing internally. You simply act. That clarity simplifies life. It removes hesitation and guilt because everything has order. Freedom doesn't come from escaping responsibility. It comes from mastering it. There's a deeper psychological truth behind this practice. Human behavior changes faster when pain and pleasure are immediate. Long-term goals often fail because the rewards are distant. Consequences make discipline present and tangible. They turn abstract effort into something your brain can feel. When your mind learns that inaction brings discomfort now, not later, it naturally begins to choose consistent action. That's how you rewire behavior permanently. Eventually, you won't need strong consequences. The habit of accountability will embed itself into your character. You'll no longer need to force action through fear or discomfort. You'll act because you've become someone who keeps promise. The consequence will shift from external cost to internal pride. Missing an action will feel wrong, not because of punishment, but because it violates your identity. That's when discipline stops being effort and becomes instinct. Setting consequences for missed actions teaches you the ultimate form of self-respect. It reminds you that your time matters, your word matters, and your actions define you. You stop treating your goals as suggestions and start treating them as commitments. Every consequence you face sharpens your focus, strengthens your integrity, and deepens your discipline. The moment you decide that failure has meaning, your growth becomes unstoppable. Discipline is not built through comfort. It's built through responsibility. And when responsibility becomes part of who you are, you no longer need to force yourself. You simply live with purpose, consistency, and strength. Number 5. Track progress with visible results. Discipline dies in silence. When you can't see your progress, your motivation fades and your focus weakens. The human brain needs visible proof that effort is working. You need to see the small wins, not just think about them. Tracking progress with visible results keeps your goals alive in front of you. It gives your discipline a direction, something tangible to fight for every single day. When you track what you do, you turn invisible effort into visible momentum. That's how you stay consistent long enough to transform yourself. The truth is, most people give up, not because the work is too hard, but because they can't measure what's changing. They assume nothing is improving when in reality, progress is happening slowly, too slowly to feel without tracking. When you keep a visible record, you give yourself proof that action leads to growth. You stop relying on how you feel and start trusting what you can see. Feelings fluctuate, data doesn't. Visible progress becomes your evidence that discipline is paying off. Start by defining what progress actually means for your goal. It can't be vague. Get better or be more consistent isn't measurable. Turn those into clear indicators. Number of workouts per week, hours studied, pages written, money saved, or days completed without breaking your routine. Discipline thrives when you can quantify it. Choose metrics that are easy to track daily, not complicated ones that require too much setup. The simpler it is, the more likely you'll stick to it. Once you've defined what to track, make it visible. Don't hide your progress in a digital file you never open. Put it somewhere you'll see every day. A wall chart, a whiteboard, a journal, a progress app with graphs, or even sticky notes on your mirror. The goal is to make your journey impossible to ignore. Every check mark, every number, every small recorded improvement reminds your brain that you're moving forward. It's a constant reminder that consistency creates results. Visibility also changes how your mind perceives effort. When you look at your progress daily, you create psychological momentum. You begin to think, I've come this far. I can't stop now. That feeling keeps you from breaking the chain. When you skip tracking, you lose that emotional link to your progress. You forget how far you've come, and the temptation to quit grows stronger. Visible results act like fuel. They make the grind meaningful. The process of tracking also builds awareness. You start noticing patterns, what times of day you perform best, what triggers make you lose focus, and how small changes affect your outcomes. Discipline isn't only about doing the work, it's about understanding how you work best. Tracking gives you insight into your own behavior, and with that insight, you can optimize your actions. You can adjust what doesn't work and double down on what does. That's how you become more efficient without burning out. Another benefit of visible tracking is emotional regulation. On difficult days, it's easy to believe that you're failing. But when you look at your record and see consistent effort behind you, that feeling fades. The evidence tells the truth, you're still moving forward. This prevents emotional sabotage, where temporary frustration makes you abandon a long-term plan. You remind yourself that progress isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Seeing your effort builds resilience. Many people underestimate the motivational power of visible progress. Think about how rewarding it feels to cross an item off a list. That small act releases dopamine, reinforcing the habit loop in your brain. It creates satisfaction, which encourages repetition. The same happens when you visually track your growth. Every update to your progress board or journal gives you a small hit of satisfaction that keeps you coming back. Over time, the process itself becomes addictive, in a good way. Tracking also exposes reality. Sometimes you'll see that you're not improving as much as you thought. That's not failure, it's feedback. It forces honesty. You can't lie to yourself when the numbers or records show the truth. This honesty builds mature discipline. You stop making excuses and start adjusting strategies. The best performers in any field rely on data because it removes emotion from decision-making. When you track your progress, you begin thinking like a professional about your growth. To make your tracking system effective, keep it consistent. Don't skip days. Even if your progress is small, record it. The goal isn't perfection, it's continuity. You're building a story of effort, not just collecting results. Over time, that story becomes powerful. You'll be able to look back and see every day you showed up, every step you took, and every challenge you overcame. That record becomes living proof that you can rely on yourself. That's the foundation of discipline, trusting your own consistency. It's also important to review your progress regularly. Don't just record, reflect. At the end of each week, look at what went well and what needs improvement. Identify patterns of behavior that helped you stay consistent. Notice the obstacles that slowed you down. This reflection turns your tracking into learning. Discipline without reflection can become mechanical. Discipline with awareness becomes intelligent. You start making decisions that align with your strengths instead of fighting against them. When progress becomes visible, the brain experiences what psychologists call the progress principle. It means that people feel happiest when they perceive movement toward a goal. It doesn't matter how big the goal is. What matters is the sense of advancement. Every small milestone you hit keeps your motivation alive. When you don't see progress, your brain assumes failure, even if you're improving beneath the surface. Visible results prevent that false perception and keep you emotionally engaged. You can also turn your tracking system into a form of accountability. When you share your progress publicly or with a trusted person, you create social pressure to stay consistent. It's not about impressing others. It's about leveraging visibility to strengthen your commitment. When your progress is out in the open, you naturally work harder to maintain it. It's the same reason athletes keep performance logs and professionals track metrics. They know that what gets measured grows. Be creative with how you track. Use graphs, streak counters, checklists, photos or journals, anything that turns effort into evidence. Some people use habit tracking apps that send reminders and display streaks. Others prefer a physical method, like marking a large calendar with bold X's for each successful day. The format doesn't matter as much as the clarity. You must be able to glance at your record and instantly know where you stand. Simplicity keeps the habit alive. Over time, your tracking system will do more than just record actions. It will change your identity. When you visually see yourself showing up day after day, your brain begins to rewrite who you are. You stop identifying as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. That shift in self-image is powerful. Once you believe you're disciplined, you begin to act like it naturally. Visible progress becomes evidence of a new identity taking form. Tracking progress also prepares you for plateaus. In any long journey, there will be times when progress slows or stalls. Without visible tracking, those moments feel like total failure. But with a clear record, you can see the bigger picture. You'll notice that plateaus are temporary pauses in an upward trend. That awareness keeps you calm and focused instead of frustrated. It teaches you patience, which is an underrated part of discipline. At some point, you'll realize that tracking isn't just about progress. It's about connection. It connects you to your effort, your time, and your growth. In a world full of distractions, visible tracking grounds you. It gives you a daily moment to acknowledge what you've done and what still needs work. That ritual builds mindfulness, and mindfulness deepens discipline. You're no longer just going through the motions, you're consciously growing. Eventually, you'll look back at your progress log, your charts or your journal, and realize how far you've come. You'll see that what once felt impossible became routine. You'll see that your consistency built momentum, and your momentum created transformation. That realization reinforces the truth. Discipline isn't about massive leaps. It's about steady steps tracked over time. Each recorded action is a building block of self-mastery. Tracking progress with visible results is the bridge between effort and belief. It transforms invisible work into something real. It keeps your goals alive, keeps your mind accountable, and keeps your motivation fueled by evidence, not emotion. When you see your results every day, you stop wondering if it's working. You know it is. And when you know it's working, you don't need to force discipline anymore. You just keep moving forward, one visible step at a time. Number 6. Start small, expand discipline gradually. Discipline doesn't begin with massive leaps. It begins with quiet steps that grow stronger over time. The mind often tricks people into believing that greatness demands an immediate overhaul, that change must happen fast or not at all. That belief destroys more progress than laziness ever could. The truth is, self-control grows like muscle. It needs steady resistance, not sudden overload. Starting small is not a sign of weakness. It's the smartest way to build lasting discipline that doesn't collapse under pressure. Every great achievement begins with a single, deliberate act. Those who sustain change understand that big goals are built from small, repeatable behaviors. They don't try to rewrite their entire lives in 1 week. They master one corner of it first. Starting small teaches the brain to handle consistency without resistance. It removes the mental weight that makes large goals feel impossible. When you shrink your starting point, you remove the excuse that says, "I don't have time." You lower the barrier to entry until success feels doable. Starting small doesn't mean thinking small. It means respecting the process of growth. Each small action creates evidence that you're capable. When you do something every day, even something tiny, you're teaching your brain that you follow through. That repetition rewires your sense of identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes what they start. That identity, once built, becomes self-sustaining. It stops being about the task and starts being about who you are. Think of any skill: reading, training, writing, or saving money. If you try to do too much at once, you exhaust yourself before you even see progress. Most people quit not because they lack the will, but because they set expectations too high for the beginning. They aim for perfection on day one. The wiser approach is to pick something so small that it's almost impossible to fail. Read 2 pages. Do 5 push-ups. Write 1 paragraph. Save $1. These micro actions build consistency, and consistency multiplies over time. Discipline expands through repetition, not intensity. It's the act of showing up repeatedly that strengthens your mental endurance. When you start small, you give yourself the chance to succeed daily. Each small win builds confidence. The momentum created by these wins fuels bigger efforts later. You can't run a marathon without learning to take the first few steps comfortably. In the same way, you can't build lifelong discipline by forcing yourself into extremes right away. The smaller the start, the longer the journey lasts. There's a psychological principle at play here called success momentum. Every time you complete a small task, your brain releases a sense of accomplishment. That satisfaction encourages you to do more. You begin craving the feeling of progress. That's why starting small works. It keeps you emotionally connected to your goal. You no longer chase motivation. You build self-belief. Motivation fades, but belief compounds. Each small step becomes a deposit into your discipline bank. Another reason to start small is sustainability. Large goals demand high energy, and high energy is rarely constant. Life will interrupt you, fatigue will catch up, and your initial enthusiasm will fade. But small actions survive those fluctuations. They fit into bad days and busy schedules. You can maintain them when everything else feels chaotic. That's what makes them powerful. They keep your chain of consistency unbroken, even when conditions aren't ideal. The person who keeps doing small things will always outperform the one who burns out doing big ones. To expand discipline gradually, you must learn timing. Don't rush to increase difficulty the moment you succeed once. Let your new habits become automatic first. Discipline solidifies only when actions no longer require debate or decision. When you reach that point, you can add more. Gradual expansion ensures your foundation remains stable. Growth without stability is temporary. The goal isn't to grow fast, it's to grow unbreakably. One of the best ways to apply this principle is through incremental challenges. Set a baseline that's almost effortless, then raise the bar slightly once it feels natural. If you're developing a fitness routine, start with short, consistent workouts before increasing duration or intensity. If you're improving focus, begin by working undistracted for 10 minutes, then stretch it to 15, then 20. This method trains your mind to adapt smoothly. Instead of shocking your system, you strengthen it layer by layer. Gradual discipline also teaches patience. You stop expecting instant transformation and start respecting effort. You learn to appreciate the process, rather than chase the outcome. That mindset shift changes everything. You no longer see small actions as insignificant. You understand that they're the building blocks of mastery. Patience doesn't slow your progress, it protects it. When you grow gradually, your habits become part of who you are, not something you force yourself to do. Many people sabotage their growth because they can't tolerate slow progress. They measure success by how fast they move, not by how long they last. They forget that every shortcut comes with hidden costs. Starting small may feel slow, but it's the only way to create results that endure. You can't rush the formation of self-control any more than you can rush the growth of a tree. Both require time, care, and consistency. Every small act of discipline is like watering the roots. You may not see change immediately, but strength is growing beneath the surface. Another reason this principle matters is that the brain resists sudden change. When you overhaul your habits overnight, your mind feels threatened. It triggers stress and fatigue because it interprets the shift as danger. That's why big resolutions often collapse after a few days. Starting small bypasses that resistance. It introduces change gently enough for your brain to accept it. Over time, what once felt hard becomes normal. That's the essence of gradual discipline. It sneaks past your brain's defenses and turns effort into ease. You can apply this concept to every area of life. If you struggle with consistency in your career, relationships, or health, reduce the size of your commitments until they're manageable. Instead of aiming to work 8 hours with perfect focus, start by mastering one focused hour. Instead of trying to completely change your diet overnight, adjust one meal at a time. Instead of forcing yourself to meditate for 30 minutes, begin with 2. Success grows from repetition, not scale. The beauty of small beginnings is that they compound. The 5 minutes of action you take today multiply into hours of experience over time. Small effort today saves massive effort later. As you expand gradually, you also expand your capacity for discomfort. The things that once drained you start to feel easy. You build endurance without realizing it. That's how true discipline forms. Not from forcing, but from expanding your limits in quiet, consistent ways. Gradual growth also builds humility. When you start small, you accept that mastery takes time. You stop pretending that you can control everything immediately. That humility keeps you grounded and open to learning. You develop respect for the process instead of chasing validation. Humility and patience together form the emotional foundation of discipline. They keep you calm when progress slows and remind you that steady steps are still movement forward. Eventually, small beginnings transform into large results. The person who commits to 10 minutes of daily discipline often accomplishes more than the one who plans endlessly for perfection. What starts as a tiny routine becomes a lifelong rhythm. The expansion feels natural because it follows your growth, not your ego. You don't push for more, you evolve into it. That's the difference between temporary effort and permanent strength. When you reflect months or years later, you'll notice that your discipline didn't appear overnight. It was built from hundreds of small moments when you showed up despite wanting to quit. Those moments, though small individually, accumulate into something powerful. They reshape your identity, your confidence, and your capacity for focus. You realize that the hardest part was not the work itself. It was the patience to start small and stay steady. True discipline doesn't rush. It respects time, repetition, and gradual improvement. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. Every small action you take today becomes a seed that will grow into a stronger version of yourself. By starting small and expanding gradually, you give your growth space to breathe, your habits time to root, and your willpower the strength to endure. Over time, those small steps become unstoppable momentum, and that momentum turns ordinary effort into extraordinary transformation. Number 7, use accountability to stay consistent. Accountability is one of the most powerful forces in building discipline because it removes the illusion that your actions exist in isolation. When you hold yourself accountable or allow others to hold you accountable, you create pressure that strengthens commitment. Most people fail not because they don't know what to do, but because no one knows whether they're doing it. When no one is watching, excuses find room to grow. Accountability eliminates that comfort. It transforms discipline from a private wish into a public promise, and promises carry weight. Human beings are social by nature. We care about how others perceive us, and that instinct can be used to our advantage. When you declare your goals out loud, you make them real. You're no longer negotiating only with yourself, where you can lie, delay, or justify an action. You're making a commitment that someone else can witness. That simple act shifts your mindset from "I'll try" to "I will." It adds a layer of seriousness that self-talk alone can't provide. Accountability isn't about fear, it's about integrity. It's about aligning your words with your actions, even when no one else is watching. There are two types of accountability: external and internal. External accountability comes from other people. Internal accountability comes from your own principles. Both are necessary, but they serve different purposes. External accountability builds momentum in the early stages when discipline is fragile. It helps you show up when your internal motivation is low. Internal accountability develops later, once your identity catches up with your action. You no longer need outside reminders because the standard lives within you. The goal is not to depend on others forever, but to use external accountability as scaffolding until your inner discipline becomes strong enough to stand on its own. Creating external accountability can be simple. You can start by telling someone your goal and setting a clear expectation for when and how you'll update them. It can be a friend, a mentor, or a group of people pursuing similar goals. The key is to choose someone who takes the commitment seriously and isn't afraid to call you out when you fall short. Soft accountability partners, people who let you slide, don't help. You need someone who respects you enough to tell you the truth. Accountability is effective only when honesty is part of the agreement. Another powerful method is public accountability. Sharing your progress online, joining a challenge, or documenting your journey creates visibility that forces consistency. When others can see your effort, you feel responsible for maintaining it. The thought of quitting becomes heavier because it's no longer just your own disappointment. It's the awareness that others will see you abandon what you said you would do. This pressure can feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is exactly what keeps you consistent. It's a controlled form of tension that sharpens focus and builds mental toughness. Accountability also works through systems, not just people. You can design your environment to hold you accountable automatically. For example, set up reminders, schedule tasks publicly, or use tools that track your activity and send notifications when you miss a target. Create routines that make it difficult to hide from your commitments. The fewer opportunities you have to escape the truth, the stronger your discipline becomes. Systems make consistency less about willpower and more about structure. When the system exposes your behavior, it becomes harder to pretend. Internal accountability grows from honesty. It's about looking at yourself clearly and refusing to accept excuses. This kind of accountability requires brutal self-awareness, the willingness to confront your weaknesses without self-pity. It's standing in front of your own reflection and saying, if I don't do what I said I would, it's on me. That level of ownership separates disciplined people from those who rely on external motivation. They don't wait for reminders or encouragement. They act because they've made a personal contract with themselves. Breaking that contract feels unacceptable, not because of punishment, but because of principle. The reason accountability works so well is that it exposes reality. It removes the stories we tell ourselves to justify inaction. When you report your progress, there's no room to hide behind intentions. You either did the work or you didn't. This clarity creates power. It removes confusion and self-deception, forcing you to face the truth. And the truth, even when uncomfortable, is what drives growth. You can't fix what you refuse to see. Accountability ensures you always see it. There's also an emotional side to accountability that many overlook. Being accountable means being vulnerable. It means admitting when you're struggling and allowing others to see your imperfection. That vulnerability builds resilience because it removes shame from the process. You stop pretending that discipline means being flawless. Instead, it becomes about showing up honestly, even when you fail. This authenticity deepens commitment because it replaces guilt with responsibility. You stop running from failure and start learning from it. To use accountability effectively, you must be specific. Vague promises lead to vague results. Saying I'll work out more doesn't mean anything. Saying I'll train 3 times a week and send a photo of my completed workout to my partner creates a standard that can be measured. Accountability thrives on clarity. When expectations are precise, progress becomes trackable, and excuses become obvious. The clearer the rule, the stronger the discipline. Accountability also builds respect, both for yourself and for those around you. When you consistently do what you said you would, People begin to trust your word. More importantly, you begin to trust yourself. That self-trust is the root of confidence. It tells you that you can depend on your own discipline, that you're not just making empty promises. Every time you follow through, you reinforce that identity. Over time, your sense of reliability becomes unshakable. You stop chasing motivation because you've built a reputation with yourself that can't be broken easily. There's a subtle balance to maintain with accountability. It should empower you, not imprison you. The purpose is not to feel guilt every time you slip, but to stay aligned with your intentions. If you fall short, accountability should help you reset quickly, not drown in regret. The best accountability systems allow room for humanity while maintaining high standards. They push you forward without breaking your spirit. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means returning to the path faster after every stumble. Sometimes accountability needs to evolve. What works at the beginning may lose power as you grow. The accountability that once kept you in line can become unnecessary once discipline becomes habit. At that stage, it's wise to shift focus from external validation to internal standards. You start doing the work not because someone expects it, but because you expect it from yourself. That's the final stage of discipline, when accountability becomes invisible because it's embedded within your character. Still, even the most disciplined individuals maintain some form of external check. They know that pride can blind them, and isolation can weaken standards. That's why great leaders, athletes, and thinkers surround themselves with coaches, advisors, or peers who challenge them. Accountability isn't a sign of weakness. It's a mark of wisdom. It shows humility, the recognition that everyone benefits from feedback, and that self-awareness can always deepen. To build accountability into your daily life, create small check-ins with yourself. Review your actions each evening. Ask, did I follow through on what I planned today? Did I act according to my values? Did I avoid the behaviors I promised to stop? Writing these answers down strengthens internal reflection. Pair that with external reporting to someone you respect, once or twice a week. This dual system, private reflection and public check-in, creates balance. One keeps you honest with yourself, the other keeps you visible to others. Over time, accountability becomes a habit of its own. You begin to feel uneasy when you drift from your standards. That discomfort is a good sign. It means your sense of responsibility has deepened. You no longer need constant reminders because the habit of honesty has become part of your identity. You act with integrity because it feels natural, not forced. Consistency thrives when accountability exists. It gives structure to discipline and transforms intention into execution. It keeps you grounded when motivation fades and pushes you to rise after failure. Accountability is the mirror that never lies. It reflects who you are today and who you are becoming. When you use it properly, it keeps your actions aligned with your values, your words aligned with truth, and your growth aligned with purpose. In the end, discipline without accountability is fragile, but discipline strengthened by it becomes unstoppable. Number 8, reward effort, not perfect outcomes. Most people abandon discipline, not because they lack the ability, but because they measure success in the wrong way. They focus only on outcomes, the numbers, the results, the external validation. When those results don't appear fast enough, they feel defeated and stop trying. The problem isn't that they're failing, it's that they're ignoring the only part of success they can truly control, the effort. Rewarding effort instead of perfect outcomes rewires how you see progress. It teaches your brain to value the process rather than the result, and that shift is what keeps you consistent long enough to reach real growth. When you chase perfection, you create a trap. Every action becomes a test of worth rather than a step toward improvement. The smallest mistake feels like failure, and instead of learning, you shut down. But when you begin to reward effort, every attempt counts. You start seeing value in showing up, even when the results are imperfect. Discipline thrives in this environment because it removes the fear of falling short. You're no longer working to prove something, you're working to grow. Effort-based discipline focuses on what's within your control. You can't always control outcomes, but you can always control how you show up. You can decide to give your best attention, to move forward even when it's inconvenient, to finish the work regardless of mood. This is where true progress happens, inside the consistent repetition of imperfect effort. The irony is that when you stop obsessing over perfect results and commit to steady effort, the results eventually become remarkable on their own. Rewarding effort is not about settling for mediocrity. It's about reinforcing the behavior that leads to excellence. People often misunderstand this idea, thinking it means lowering standards. In truth, it raises them by shifting focus from one-time achievements to long-term consistency. Anyone can perform well once under ideal conditions, but disciplined people perform consistently even when conditions are far from perfect. They're able to do that because their satisfaction comes from knowing they acted with effort, not because everything went their way. To apply this mindset, begin by defining what effort means to you. It might be completing your planned workout even when you're tired, writing for 20 minutes despite mental fatigue, or focusing fully on your task without distractions. Once you identify what genuine effort looks like, recognize it every time it happens. Don't wait until the end result appears to feel proud. Give yourself credit for doing the work, especially on the days when it feels hardest. Those are the moments when discipline grows strongest. Effort-based rewards can be small but powerful. They can be something as simple as marking your progress visually, writing down your daily accomplishments, or taking a moment to reflect on what you did right. These acknowledgments tell your brain that effort matters. Over time, your mind begins to crave that sense of completion, not external perfection. You stop being paralyzed by the fear of not being good enough, because you've built a habit of recognizing growth instead of flaws. The danger of perfectionism is that it turns progress into punishment. When you constantly measure yourself against an impossible standard, every step forward feels inadequate. This destroys motivation and breeds shame. Rewarding effort reverses that cycle. It builds emotional resilience. You stop judging yourself for where you are and start appreciating how far you've come. That self-compassion doesn't make you lazy. It gives you the strength to persist. People who treat themselves harshly when they fail tend to quit sooner. People who respect their effort recover faster and keep going. In the long run, effort-based discipline is more reliable because it teaches patience. You learn that mastery takes time and that every repetition counts, even when progress is invisible. The world praises results, but the disciplined mind learns to praise persistence. Every day you act with purpose becomes a deposit into your growth account. Even small efforts compound when repeated consistently. When you internalize this, failure stops being discouraging. It becomes feedback. You understand that every imperfect day still pushes you forward. Rewarding effort also builds humility. It reminds you that progress isn't about control, it's about commitment. You can't force every situation to go your way, but you can always choose your response. By focusing on what you can control, you free yourself from frustration over what you can't. That kind of acceptance doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. You're no longer held hostage by outcomes, which means setbacks lose their grip on you. You keep working because the effort itself is your measure of success. One of the most overlooked benefits of rewarding effort is that it strengthens your relationship with failure. When you value the act of trying, you remove the shame from falling short. You start seeing failure as proof of courage, not proof of weakness. This mindset creates a fearless type of discipline. You become willing to take risks, to experiment, to face challenges without fear of embarrassment. Every time you act despite uncertainty, your confidence grows, not because you succeeded, but because you acted when others hesitated. Practical discipline thrives when you make effort visible. Track the days you showed up, not just the days you achieved something measurable. Build a streak based on consistency rather than perfection. When you look back and see evidence of sustained effort, it strengthens your belief in your ability to persist. You'll begin to see that missing perfection never mattered. What mattered was that you didn't stop. The record of effort becomes the real measure of strength. Rewarding effort also improves focus. When you stop obsessing over the final outcome, your attention shifts to the present moment. You no longer waste energy worrying about how everything will turn out. Instead, you immerse yourself in the task itself. That kind of presence produces better quality work because your energy is directed toward doing, not doubting. Ironically, when you detach from results, You perform better. You enter a flow state where your actions become natural and consistent. You can also use effort-based rewards to train your mind through reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself simple questions. Did I give genuine effort today? Did I stay engaged even when it was uncomfortable? Did I act in line with my goals? These questions keep you grounded in responsibility without judgment. You're not grading yourself based on outcomes. You're checking whether you honored your own commitment. Over time, this daily reflection turns into a quiet kind of pride that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. Another key part of this principle is learning to separate self-worth from performance. When you base your value only on achievements, failure feels personal. It attacks your identity. But when you reward effort, failure becomes situational. It's part of the process, not a reflection of who you are. This mindset allows you to keep improving without internal chaos. You can fail without losing confidence because your worth isn't tied to the scoreboard. It's tied to your integrity and consistency. People who master this principle tend to outlast those who rely on perfection because they're emotionally balanced. They don't crumble when things don't go according to plan. They stay calm, adapt, and keep showing up. They understand that the world rewards those who can persist longer, not those who never stumble. The ones who chase flawless results often burn out because perfection offers no rest. It's a race with no finish line. Effort-based discipline gives you permission to progress imperfectly, which is the only way anyone truly progresses. Rewarding effort also strengthens the connection between mind and body. Every time you push through resistance, whether it's mental fatigue or physical discomfort, you prove that you can do more than you thought. This builds internal confidence that extends beyond your goals. It becomes a mindset you apply to everything. You begin to see challenges differently, not as obstacles, but as opportunities to test effort. That perspective makes you unshakable because you no longer fear hard work. You respect it. Eventually, you'll notice that effort-based living changes your entire relationship with success. You stop chasing highs from achievements and start finding peace in consistency. You learn to enjoy the process because it's no longer a means to an end. It becomes the reward itself. This is the essence of sustainable discipline, doing the work because it matters, not because it looks impressive. When effort becomes its own reward, you'll never run out of motivation. The moment you start recognizing effort as success, you unlock freedom. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, and you start acting now. You stop fearing mistakes, and you start learning from them. You stop needing approval, and you start respecting your persistence. Each day you show up, even imperfectly, becomes a victory. Because the truth is, success doesn't belong to those who never fail. It belongs to those who keep trying with full effort day after day, regardless of outcome. That's the kind of discipline that endures. That's the kind that changes everything. Number 9. Master routines before adding more. Discipline is built on consistency, and consistency thrives on routine. The more reliable your daily habits become, the less energy it takes to maintain them. Attempting to pile new habits on top of an unstable routine is like building a second floor on a foundation that isn't solid. It will eventually collapse. Mastering routines before adding more is the key to sustainable growth, because it allows your actions to become automatic rather than forced. When a routine becomes ingrained, it requires minimal mental effort, freeing your focus for higher-level tasks and more ambitious goals. Routines serve as the scaffolding of discipline. They structure your day so that decisions are pre-made, leaving less room for procrastination or distraction. When you establish a core set of routines, you eliminate the constant negotiation with your willpower. You no longer waste energy asking yourself whether to act or postpone. Your body and mind know what to do, and they do it without debate. Mastering one routine thoroughly before layering another ensures that your foundation remains strong, preventing burnout or fragmentation of effort. The key to mastering a routine is repetition. Repetition cements behavior into habit. Start with a manageable number of actions. Morning rituals, work blocks, exercise sessions, or study periods, and perform them consistently. Focus on quality over quantity, making sure that each routine is executed with attention and purpose. Repetition is not just doing the same thing over and over, is doing it in a way that reinforces structure and builds momentum. Once a routine feels natural, you'll notice that it no longer requires willpower to complete. Trying to adopt too many routines simultaneously is a common trap. Enthusiasm often fuels initial attempts, but without mastery, routines remain fragile. Adding more habits on top of weak ones divides attention and energy, leading to failure and frustration. It's better to perfect one routine until it's seamless, then gradually introduce another. This approach ensures that each new habit has a stable foundation to lean on. When routines are mastered one at a time, each new layer reinforces the previous one, creating a resilient structure for growth. Routines also create rhythm in your life. They define the flow of your day and reduce mental friction. When you know exactly what comes next, your energy is preserved for execution rather than decision-making. Each completed routine reinforces the feeling of accomplishment, which fuels further discipline. Consistency becomes enjoyable rather than burdensome because it's embedded in a familiar sequence of actions. Mastery ensures that the rhythm doesn't break under stress or distraction. A powerful method to master routines is to anchor them to specific times or triggers. Linking a habit to a cue like brushing your teeth before journaling or meditating immediately after breakfast makes it easier to execute consistently. The brain thrives on patterns, and repeated cues build automaticity. Over time, these routines require almost no conscious thought. They become part of your identity, not just tasks on a list. Anchoring routines prevents them from being skipped, even when motivation fluctuates. Tracking routines visually accelerates mastery. Use charts, calendars, or apps to record every completed action. Seeing tangible evidence of your consistency reinforces the behavior. The visual progress acts as both feedback and motivation, confirming that the routine has become habitual. This external representation helps you identify weak points and adjust before adding new layers. Without tracking, it's easy to overestimate your consistency and introduce additional routines prematurely, risking collapse. Patience is critical when mastering routines. Progress is rarely instantaneous, and the brain resists change initially. Expect resistance and fatigue, but stay committed. Consistently performing the same actions, even when they feel tedious, rewires your mind and body. Mastery is not about perfection, it's about reliability. Once a routine becomes automatic, it becomes a dependable tool you can rely on daily, providing stability in the face of life's inevitable chaos. Mastering routines before adding more also teaches self-awareness. As you repeat a routine, you learn how your energy, focus, and emotions respond to it. You notice the times when you're most effective and the obstacles that interfere with consistency. This insight allows you to refine the routine, making it more efficient and aligned with your natural rhythms. When the core routines are stable, it's easier to layer additional actions without disrupting the balance of your day. Another advantage of routine mastery is stress reduction. Life presents countless decisions, and each one consumes mental energy. When core routines are established, you reduce decision fatigue. Choices that used to require deliberation are handled automatically. This frees your mind to tackle complex problems or creative endeavors. Without mastery, adding more routines only increases cognitive load, making discipline harder to sustain. The foundation of stable routines provides both clarity and mental bandwidth. Consistency within routines breeds confidence. Each completed routine reinforces self-trust. You begin to rely on yourself because you know that, regardless of circumstances, your actions follow through. Confidence grows not from external validation, but from repeated proof that you can control your behavior. That trust becomes essential when you eventually add new routines, as it allows you to believe in your ability to maintain multiple commitments simultaneously. The temptation to add more routines before mastery is often disguised as ambition. You feel like doing more will accelerate results. However, without a solid base, additional routines are superficial. They require constant effort to enforce and often collapse under pressure. True progress comes from depth before breadth. Fully mastering one set of routines allows you to expand horizontally without losing consistency or focus. This creates exponential growth over time rather than temporary bursts of activity. It's also essential to evaluate the purpose of each routine. Mastery isn't about completing actions mindlessly. It's about creating meaningful, high-impact habits. Ask yourself why each routine matters and what outcome it serves. When the purpose is clear, you're more likely to maintain consistency, even under stress. Mastery requires intentionality, not just repetition. The alignment between your actions and your goals ensures that the routine contributes to long-term growth rather than becoming busy work. Integration is another key component. Once a routine is mastered, it should feel seamless with the rest of your day. It should not create friction or require extraordinary effort. Integration means that the routine exists naturally within the flow of your life, allowing you to expand without overwhelming yourself. When a routine is fully integrated, adding additional layers becomes much easier because the foundation can support new behaviors without destabilizing the system. Mastering routines before adding more also builds resilience. Life will inevitably throw challenges that threaten consistency. If your core routines are weak, these disruptions will break habits quickly. If your routines are strong and automatic, you can adapt to stress while maintaining essential practices. Mastery provides a safety net. Even when unexpected events occur, your foundational habits continue to anchor your day. This reliability ensures that growth is sustainable, not dependent on ideal conditions. Long-term success depends on cumulative routine mastery. Each mastered routine compounds with others, creating a network of consistent actions that reinforce each other. A morning routine sets the tone for the day, leading to productive work blocks and healthy evening habits. Each layer adds stability and amplifies results. By focusing on mastery first, you create a durable system that supports complex goals without overwhelming yourself. Eventually, the point comes where adding more routines is effortless. By this stage, discipline is ingrained and energy flows naturally through daily actions. You can expand your habits without strain because each new action is built on a strong foundation of reliable behavior. This is the moment when growth accelerates, not because you're forcing yourself, but because your system is designed for sustained expansion. Mastery transforms effort into instinct. Discipline becomes effortless when routines are mastered. It's no longer a battle of willpower. It's the natural unfolding of structure and habit. Every action is anchored, every behavior predictable, and every day productive. Only after mastering your existing routines can you layer more without risking collapse. Mastery first ensures that expansion leads to permanent growth, not temporary bursts. In this way, discipline evolves from fragile attempts into unshakable consistency, creating a life defined by order, efficiency, and reliable progress. Number 10. Act first, think feelings later. Action is the engine of discipline. Waiting for the perfect mood, ideal motivation, or emotional readiness is a trap that keeps most people stagnant. Feelings are fickle, inconsistent, and often misleading. They rise and fall based on circumstances outside your control. If you rely on them to start or maintain action, you give your life over to chance. Acting first and thinking about feelings later flips that dynamic. It places control firmly in your hands because you no longer wait for permission from your emotions. You decide and move, and the feelings eventually follow. The human mind tends to overanalyze when emotions are involved. You feel hesitant, anxious, or reluctant, and suddenly a simple task becomes monumental. Procrastination grows not from difficulty, but from the emotional weight you assign to it. Action dissolves that weight. The moment you start doing, the problem stops being abstract and starts becoming tangible. Doing creates clarity, where thinking creates doubt. When you act first, you bypass the mental paralysis that feelings often produce. Emotions are often backward indicators. They tell you what you think will happen rather than what is actually happening. Fear tells you something is dangerous, even when it's necessary. Resistance signals growth but feels uncomfortable. Waiting for fear or hesitation to disappear guarantees inaction. Acting before your feelings catch up rewires your perception. Over time, your mind learns that discomfort does not equal danger. You discover that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Momentum is built by motion. The first step often feels the hardest because it conflicts with inertia. But once you act, momentum begins to accumulate. A single completed action triggers your brain to continue, creating a chain reaction of follow-through. Waiting for the right emotional state to appear rarely produces this effect. Acting before feelings align allows you to generate your own internal drive. Feelings are a result, not a prerequisite, of disciplined action. This principle applies to all areas of life. When trying to establish habits, waiting for inspiration ensures inconsistency. Waiting to feel motivated to exercise, write, or work is a recipe for mediocrity. Those who achieve long-term success understand that action shapes emotion, not the other way around. You cultivate motivation, confidence, and satisfaction by starting first, observing your feelings later, and adjusting as you progress. Every action strengthens your capacity to act again. The concept of act first, think feelings later, also reduces the cognitive load of decision-making. Indecision is fueled by overthinking and emotional evaluation. Every moment spent wondering whether you feel like acting is a moment wasted. Immediate action turns speculation into reality. The mind no longer debates what might happen because you've created experience instead of expectation. Your emotions begin to align with reality, not hypothetical fears or excuses. Discipline is essentially trained action. Acting first removes the emotional barrier and forces consistency. Consistency itself gradually changes your emotional responses. What once felt uncomfortable or impossible becomes routine and even satisfying. Action trains not just your skills or habits, but your emotional resilience. Every time you push forward despite hesitation, you teach your mind that discomfort is temporary and manageable. This creates a sense of inner reliability that cannot be shaken by mood swings. The resistance you feel before acting is often magnified by your imagination. The mind conjures potential difficulties, worst-case scenarios, and imagined consequences. This mental noise prevents progress. Action silences the noise by confronting reality directly. It transforms abstract worry into concrete experience. Once you start, the imagined difficulty is usually far less intimidating than anticipated. Acting first proves that most fears exist only in thought, not in the actual task. This principle also fosters confidence. Confidence is not built by waiting for certainty or emotional readiness. It is built by repeated evidence of competence. Every time you act before feeling ready, you collect proof that you are capable of more than your emotions suggest. That proof accumulates, creating a feedback loop. Action generates confidence, which fuels more action. Over time, the need to wait for the right feeling diminishes entirely because experience has replaced doubt. Deliberate preparation can coexist with this principle, but it must not be confused with emotional readiness. Planning and strategizing are different from waiting to feel motivated or unafraid. Preparation equips action. Emotion excuses delay. Acting first ensures that preparation is utilized effectively, rather than wasted in anticipation. Even imperfect action provides information, teaches lessons, and builds momentum. Waiting for feelings often results in no preparation being executed at all. Acting before feelings also develops courage. Courage is not innate. It is cultivated by repeated confrontation with discomfort. The more you practice moving forward despite fear, the less intimidating challenges become. Each small act of disciplined initiation strengthens your tolerance for difficulty. Fear remains present, but it no longer dictates your behavior. Acting first trains the mind to follow purpose, rather than emotion, creating a mental habit of decisive movement. Consistency grows from this approach because action becomes independent of external and internal conditions. You don't rely on mood, environment, or external motivation to act. You act because it is necessary, regardless of circumstances. This autonomy builds a kind of self-trust that is essential for lasting discipline. When you rely on feelings, your progress is conditional and fragile. When you act first, progress is unconditional and self-sustaining. To implement this, commit to immediate action triggers. For example, when it's time to work, start now even if you feel tired, distracted, or unmotivated. When it's time to exercise, begin the movement before negotiating with your emotions. The first motion, even if small, initiates momentum and breaks the cycle of hesitation. Each completed trigger strengthens the habit loop, reducing the need for emotional persuasion in the future. This principle also encourages a growth mindset. You learn to view effort and initiative as more important than comfort or emotional approval. You focus on doing and learning rather than judging yourself for how you feel. Action generates feedback, and feedback generates improvement. Emotions adapt to competence. The mind begins to associate effort with growth, not with fear or discomfort. Over time, this rewires your natural response to challenges. Procrastination is eliminated when action precedes feelings. Most delay occurs because the mind waits for emotional clarity that never comes. Taking initiative immediately interrupts this pattern. It creates a habit of responsiveness rather than avoid. This habit becomes automatic. When faced with a task, your first instinct is to start, not to debate. Over time, this reflex develops into a core aspect of your disciplined identity. Finally, acting first and thinking feelings later instills accountability to yourself. You stop relying on arbitrary moods to justify progress and take ownership of your growth. Your results are no longer hostage to temporary emotional states. Every completed action reinforces self-reliance, proving that you are capable of controlling your behavior regardless of how you feel. This principle not only strengthens discipline, it strengthens character, resilience, and freedom. In the end, waiting for the right feeling is a luxury that rarely exists. Action is the foundation of growth, and feelings follow only after movement begins. Discipline is built through repeated initiation, not through emotional readiness. Every step taken despite hesitation, doubt, or fear reinforces the truth. Progress comes from doing first, adjusting later, and letting emotions catch up to action. That is how lasting self-mastery is forged, moment by moment, decision by decision, act by act.